the computer, and we are recording. Woo woo.
All
So this
right.
pre-show for the Science of Fantasy Football is Saturday, November 1st. Have you looked at the races today? Can we?
Yeah,
Okay,
we can
good.
we could talk a little racing. I've handicapped done a little bit of handicapping last night and this
Good.
morning. So we're yeah, I think we're
I've
ready to go.
actually already did some pre-betting here. Uh,
Oh wow.
yeah. So Superfecta is just seeing what's what. So went ahead, did that. I did the target information for the first 8 weeks, but I wanted to land here, Dennis. This is bullet points. And I started thinking, when you walk your dog, you think about things. And
Yes.
the landscape concept, I think, allows us to refresh and reset us if we use it correctly. And that's what I do when I see this is it it gives us a chance to wipe away from the sensationalness of the last week or the last games. In other words, it takes us above that and we can refresh, refocus on what's gone on the season. Just like your article did on the at the half. Same thing, folks. Y'all could check that out. Dennis has done it with his MVP. It's uh, it just like, why are we doing this? Well, for me, it allows me to put the whole season in perspective, and I'm not tricked by last week or last time I thought about this player, this team.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of people do that. It doesn't mean I'm focused back on week one and that's what's driving my decisions. I'm using it more to see how we arrived at where we are today, that journey. What did I see along the way? Kind of looking back as you've traveled, you come home after a vacation and you kind of look at everything and I bet you'll feel like, I would do things a little different, than before. In
Yes.
other words, if I replayed these weeks and some of my decisions, you would have done it before. And so the trick is what should you have done? What could you do? How does it fit into your diary? Where are some flaws you did? It all allows that to come together. And so I found this slide on how to get rid of some of these biases, like, last week bias, sensational bias. And the first thing we do is understand our own processes. And that, I think, is part of our diary.
Yes.
And just kind of these articles thinking where we've done, looking back at our draft board at the end of the season, seeing what the people that won, the people that lost. Uh, and it's not the thing where any one game or decision is so dramatic. I mean, there are a few, right? If you drafted Puka that one year, or when we jumped on St. Brown, those things really stick out. But I think they brought us points too. So there are things that stick out and there are things that are positive, like we drafted correctly or we picked them up early, or negative, right? We were
Yes.
overestimating things. And again, injuries kind of mess that up as well. So anyway, this is just some bullet points for people to read. This is not, I mean, I'm not going to give you homework, but if I did, it would be for you to read this 2 or 3 times and put in your diary and look at some of these things, Dennis, that go with what I do. For instance, questioning what's going on, right?
Yes.
Understanding that there are tricks and you don't know where the mines are in the minefield, but you probably know you're in it. Each draft round could
Oh yeah.
be
Yep.
explode in your face. And
Yep.
so, challenge what we're thinking about. And I think the diary helps us do that. Notice the third one here, the fourth one, seek the opinion of others.
Yes.
And so, Dennis, you and I, we kind of do that with ourselves. Like I said, it would
Yes.
be nice if our posters at the expo, we would gather more people to really sit down and get deep into this. The more we could get, the better for everybody. It would be a council that allows us to think. So it's pretty clear in business and investments and stocks and groups of people get together and and you're saying, oh, diversity is a strength. Well, it can be, but it's got to be the right people. And in the Good Judgment Project, what this first part was figuring out who the good people are
Oh yeah.
by their methods. So just because somebody is diverse, and I'm not defining that, however you want to define, doesn't mean they're helpful to the. In other words, if everybody's saying the same thing, what was it? I don't know. Was it Patton or so? Then somebody's not thinking. In other words,
Right.
the military thinking a lot of this. That's why they did the red cell thinking, Dennis, where they actually had groups of people that all they did was talk Russian and read Russian newspapers and radio and TV and did not interact with the American and what they were doing. They were trying to think like the Russians or think like their enemies. That's why it's called the red cell. So you isolate them and let them think like our opponents. What are they seeing? How are they doing? And you were trying to get their opinions. And I think, you and I try to do that. We stay aloof from a lot of the noise, and it's hard. Look, I'm not,
Oh yeah.
it's hard. Every year it's hard. The fifth thing, take your time. That's why I love, 6 hour drafts. The data that I've seen says you should avoid rushing to conclusions. It doesn't mean you can't start thinking about the landscape but you should have time to reflect on what you're doing. Sometimes the reflection is, oh, this is right, do it. Other times it's like, I need to think about this, and you and I will chew through some of this on these hard decisions. And like I said, I would be nice if we had more people to chew on things because I would definitely lead that group. We would have ways for finding the strengths and weaknesses of people to kind of have a red cell like, okay, you're going to be our dynasty 2 or 3. Your job is to focus from that perspective. I mean, you could have guillotine people and doing their stuff. You could have, the redraft
Yes.
people. You could have the betting people. I mean, that would be the ultimate is to have groups that were focused on those areas. I mean, they're there on the internet, but they're all diverse and it all
Yeah.
kind of they get lost in the shuffle, Dennis. And of course, I've done a lot of thinking about cognitive biases and doesn't mean I've solved them. It's just I know they're there. So that's
Yes.
half the battle is like, I can't see it, but I know there's an elephant in the room somewhere.
Oh boy.
And so, you
Yeah,
know,
I have one on there that I constantly fight because and it's so ironic because I always joke about the good old days of fantasy football when all of my drafts were on Yahoo, okay, Yahoo Sports, and if I got a high grade, I was worried because I knew that my team was going to be lousy. Like if I got a C grade, I knew I drafted right. But my bias is that I lean into too much the projections that are made about players.
Mhm.
And I need to be better realizing, well, if I'm joking about the draft grades being bad, maybe the projections are not that good either. And so I need to get out of this mindset, and maybe I need to do a study that compares maybe sleepers forecast for players versus FFPC, and see how accurate these predictions are. And maybe that will solve it. But I sometimes get caught up in, oh my goodness, I'm going for this guy, and this projection is 6 points lower than this other guy. And why is that? And I start doubting myself when I should realize that you and I, because of the work we do, we're probably as good as the projections,
Yeah.
or better. And I,
Well, I
but
hope so.
my cognitive bias is depending on those too often that
Well,
I
Dennis, because we're supposed to help each other, how I do those is I look at the extreme projections and like if they've got player X at like 5 points or player Y at 20 points, I'm thinking, okay. I think the hardest is those in the middle.
oh yeah, yeah,
I
it
think
is
the
the middle guys.
extremes. So I think you could, if you did a study, I think you need to pull out the extremes. And I think you'll see more clarity on the extremes than the middle. I think if you really
Yeah,
want success, is beating the middle because that's going to be where there's, positives and negatives and it blends together and it's about predicted to be average.
yeah,
But it's probably not that way, but that's the best going in that the projections can tell you that it's average, but it can be really, I wonder if the variation is not more crazier in the middle. I don't know that, but when I see extreme highs and lows, I start, especially if it's against what I'm thinking. A lot of
yes,
times, the highs and lows, yeah, I see that. It doesn't mean that I'm following that, but I understand that. So I have to ask myself, okay, this person is at 5, but I'm thinking this. And, depending on what else I have, and a lot of times it's, okay, I've got a couple choices and they're not great. They're predicted to be five
yes,
points, but at least
yes.
you start at that point. And I think that's, if I had to say on your problem, I bet the middle is the trickiest.
It is. It really is because
I mean, when they say 10 points, man, that's
yeah,
tricky because it makes you feel, well, I guess that's kind of safe. You
yeah,
go in thinking,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden it's a landmine. Or,
yes,
boy, I only play half of those because it's only average. And it's a go off this week. It's a Mark Andrews this week.
yes, yes. And I'll guarantee that's where my trouble is because I don't even pay attention to the guys that I have rated high in MVP. Like
You
if
kind
I've
of
got
know where they're going to be.
yeah, if I've got a guy over 80 in MVP historically and for the season, okay, and I mention that because I like to look at recent performances. And if a guy is, if he's just on, if he's doing well, yeah, I don't worry about him. Like I don't
Right.
even look at the projection. But it's after that first sort that I go through every week, and I've mentioned this to you. I sort my players on Tuesday. I start
Right.
sorting my players, and I give my first sort to who are my guys that I don't care what the defensive matchup is, that these are guys that are the best on my team. And I put my running backs, my wide receivers, and my two flex together. That's the first thing that I do. I don't even look at quarterbacks yet. and I don't look at tight ends. I look at the RBs and wide receivers, and that's my first sort. And that first sort, like 80% of the time, that's all I need to do.
Yeah.
I know my guys that are my starters, and whether I have the buys or injuries coming into play, the other guys are reaches. Like the other guys are, they're not the volume heavy guys. And, quite often I end up with three guys for that final flex. And that's a great position to be in. Then you've got a great team. When I get done with the first sort, I don't have those first six positions locked in or at least filled. Then I'm like, oh crap, this is going to be a bad week. Because I don't want to have to look for the Brashard Smiths or the, Bam Knights or the Michael Carters of the world. I don't want to deal with those. And I'm happy to say most of my teams in FPC this year, I've had to make a decision. And having to make a decision is really good. Yes, you've got your battles of missing, but you're usually missing between 11 and 17. You're not missing between 2 and 17. So I feel pretty good about those decisions, but I need to constantly remind myself that we are as good or better than the projections. So if we have a really strong feeling, then we're ignore don't look at those don't look at the points that are projected. So I feel pretty good about that. And I know from years of playing fantasy football now on Sleeper, if I look at my teams on a Sunday morning and I've got a lot of red on the screen, meaning I've got a negative matchup, I'm not favored to win, I then come back to win. Like I know that the projections are not super accurate, or that red on the screen would be red on the screen at the end of the day on Monday. And it's not that case. I have a lot of reds that swap to greens, and I have much fewer greens that swap to red, thankfully. But I know that I have to constantly fight that. But the important thing, and this is why I love this list that you got up here, I don't think most people even think about such things, but we do, because we keep a diary and we do studies and we understand the natural variance. Like if I started, I'm just going to pick a random wide receiver here. Okay. If I've got a decision, my last decision is playing AJ Brown in the last flex, or Brian Thomas Jr. Okay. Two guys that I had fairly close to ratings wise at the beginning of the year. Let's say those are my final two decisions. And I pick AJ Brown, and he has 17 points, and Brian Thomas Jr. has 22. I don't go, oh God, I missed that one. I'm happy that I got the 17. The only time I get upset with a decision that I make is when I go against my system. In other words, I lean, I've got a tough matchup, and instead of taking the home team or the better defensive matchup, I lean into the trouble. And when I do that, then I'm like, I get spanked, and I'm like, that was a miss. I should have been smarter on that one. And I made that mistake with Drake May and Dak Prescott recently, where I was tossed up. I was completely tossed up. And my reasoning was, I think I'm leaning Dak because the worst case is I'm going to get garbage time points. And my biggest concern with Drake May is he even going to have to throw the ball that much against this Dallas defense? Or are they going to just run the ball all over Dallas? So it wasn't that I thought that Drake May was in a bad spot. It was just that I thought the game script might play against him. And I was tossed up. I was literally a 50-50 decision. I asked you. I was leaning Dak. You were leaning Dak. So I played Dak,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And we were wrong. But so what? But you live and learn. And what we discovered along the way was, boy, there's a big home away bias for Dak right now.
Yeah.
And that will help us down the road. And I'd rather make this decision and be wrong in week 8 than in the fantasy football playoffs.
Gotcha. People should use this list. This is, I would say, copy it and stick it in your diary.
Yes.
Uh, and just start thinking about that. Every once in a while, just read one or two of these and, how does it apply to what you're doing or not doing? That would be my advice. We can talk more about this later. So, full circle, landscape, I think, allows us to refresh our thinking and to put into perspective the whole situation that we've experienced over these last 8 weeks versus last week. Yes, the last week is very telling. There's data there, but first week had some input as well. We got to week 8 because of week 1, 2, 3, 4, that pattern leading up. So it's important to see the journey as well. So, anyway, let me start. Probably more than we wanted here. So, weeks 1 to 8, scaled target population distribution. In other words, uh, team level average of targets, and I scaled it to the league average. So anything positive is above league average, anything negative is below. And I got these data here, Dennis. Uh, the scaled 0.25 and minus 0.29. So I applied that data and it kind of told me where the boundaries were. So the top whisker is green, so that's from here to there, and the bottom whisker is the red. Those teams from there to there. So when you look at this, this is the box and whisker. It just defines what teams are in each group. And again, it doesn't mean you play or don't play any of these, players on any of these teams. It just puts into perspective in the terms of targets where things are. And Buffalo, Dennis, is last,
Wow.
and Atlanta is first in scale. Again, we're not talking efficiency, touchdowns. We're just looking at slung targets, Dennis. It doesn't look at rushing. I mean, some teams don't pass a lot, they rush, right? Buffalo probably does a lot more rushing but I'm just looking through the lens of targets. So you got
So,
to understand the limitations, right? This is
so
not everything. But anyway, this allows you to maybe fill that last flex. I mean, Atlanta, and if you look at home, I'm liking Atlanta at home. I'm scared. In other words, if I'm going to pay Mooney, I'm going to play him at home with Penix, not Cousins.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
some of it. And then the Chargers, Cincinnati has really picked it up. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, I know they're sucky, but boy, they're slinging targets. Dallas is another one. San Francisco, the Giants.
So one
So,
one thing I've noticed here in this list,
yeah,
these are teams that heavily favor throwing to their running backs.
it could
So
be. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. So that might be a little bit of the edge. And the ones at the bottom, Buffalo never throws to their running back. Baltimore doesn't do it unless they absolutely have to. Like it's not even a part of their regular part of their game. New England kind of does, but only on third down. It's
Yeah.
it's just kind of weird. But there's a big split between who throws to their running back and who
And we could
doesn't.
plot that.
Yeah, I love
folks,
this.
and
I love
offset.
this.
But anyway, this just so now as you look to this, just kind of reset things, especially, if you've got a flex and you're looking at a second, third WR here, or maybe a second RB here or there, maybe that breaks the tie a little bit. And here's something you're really going to like, Dennis. And uh, here's the list, the scale targets, just like week 8. So, week 8, looking at the who's in the top in targets, opportunities, call it, and bottom. I looked back at FFPC draft round. Round 1 is in green.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know you love it. Round 2 is in
Ooh.
yellow, and round 3 is in purple. So,
Ooh.
yeah, so this allows us to ask the question, how did we let a Bouquet or Evans go in the 4th round or later? I mean, look at New Orleans. I mean, Olave.
And we were all over Egbuka. We're all
I was
over
over
Olave.
Olave. I sure
Olave
was.
was like all over that. Yeah.
Yeah. But you see,
Oh.
so why did we
Oh.
miss on Minnesota? You see, look how far down they are relative to where
And
they were going. You were talking
and with
Jefferson.
and with McCarthy hurt,
Yeah.
maybe that has been a big
Look
problem.
at the
But
third round.
yeah. Yeah. Oh my
This
goodness.
isn't that interesting?
Wow.
So this is a
And
new way, Dennis, for
yeah.
us to you love. Is this like eureka?
Well,
I'm sitting there
it
looking at this and I'm thinking,
it
oh, and I asked you the question yesterday, and it was based off this thinking. Uh, what's the minimum targets for a wide receiver that has a 80 or 100? What are we thinking? What's
oof.
the opportunity of a running back at 80, 100 kind of thing with touches? Start thinking that way, and then in the draft, start asking the big question before we get to the player. In other words, how did we miss on San Francisco slinging it to nobody out? I mean, there's nobody out there yet. They have
CMC.
that capacity. And look
Yep.
at Buffalo. Everybody was all over Shakir. They were all over Coleman,
Oh, I didn't like them.
Kincaid,
Yeah. Yeah.
and look at the bottom here of who's
Yeah.
who and what. Again, this doesn't mean the number one can't do, I'm just saying the team overall group. This is a
But
beginning, but just
oh,
look at the rounds and you can just see where things were. And the purple, how did we miss the Chargers? You know,
yeah.
uh, is
Yeah.
it is it because people thought there was going to be too much competition? And it probably is. I mean, this doesn't mean that there was a dominant person, Dennis. It
But
just
they're still
means the
slinging it.
team is
Yeah, they're
spitting it
slinging
out.
it. They are
Yeah,
slinging it this year, and they're leaning into Herbert. That might not have been an easy prediction at the
I
beginning of the
understand.
year,
But now we
but
have a
look at
way to look at this.
but here's one interesting way to look at the data. So Atlanta, we know that the second and third target guys are not a wide receiver.
Nope.
They're the running back and the tight end. Okay, so we can look at this chart and say, okay, Atlanta doesn't throw a lot to that second wide receiver, so I'm only going to lean into one wide receiver on
Right.
Atlanta. Chargers, on the other hand, they kind of mix and match with where they're throwing, so I don't have a problem with leaning into a second or even a third wide receiver from their group.
Mhm.
Cincinnati, same way. They don't have a real tight end, so it's WR1, WR2. There's Higgins and why he's valuable to go with Chase. Tampa Bay is one where we didn't know whether Evans or Godwin when they would be healthy, so we leaned into Egbuka. And the reality is we could lean into several wide receivers with that group. New Orleans, it's all about Kamara and Olave. So this chart really tells you, okay, if they're high on this chart, is there a tight end or a running back that is going to dominate it? And Dallas might be how we catch Ferguson. Maybe I
So
did. This is great.
what you're discussing is an expanding of the thinking,
Yes.
a
Just like,
methodology.
correct. Just like when we look at the power rankings and we see a team in the red,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I've got to really have problems to start more than one guy from that team.
Yeah.
Versus if they're on the green side, to the left side of that ledger, man, I can't start enough players from them. Maybe the same rationale here, where Buffalo, we say, okay, I'm only taking Kincaid or Shakir. I'm not messing with anybody else. And I might not even mess with either of those guys. And that might be the
And
rationale of just
again,
saying,
Dennis, I didn't look at predictions across
yeah,
year to year. In other words,
yeah,
next year, is Buffalo doing the same tricks? Maybe
correct.
I don't know what they did last year because I hadn't done this kind of thinking.
No, but we will.
Yeah.
So we will know
So
where
you
the
wonder, does
tendencies
some of
are.
this carry
Yeah.
over? And then forward, Dennis, is there any data that we can get thinking to help us in the playoffs? Is there any? I mean, I really, FFPC, there's no trades or anything, but if I was a dynasty person or, and I was trying to go in for the win, I think I would be thinking about, are there some opportunities like is Shahid cheaper than, he might should be, for example,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. In other words, can I go all in to have somebody who's, there's going to be on this high targeting team, even though, the efficiency may not be, but at least you got a shot. If it's coming your way, you got a shot at it here. I'm
Well,
just
here's
wondering,
yeah, and
Dennis,
here's this.
can you use it that way?
Yeah, I think you can, and I also think you can look at this and say, okay, New Orleans is high up on this list.
Yeah.
Okay,
And this is a visual
if
green and red.
so, first of all, if something happens to Olave, I think Shahid is the
Man, could you
next likely
imagine?
guy to benefit. But here's the other twist: if something happens to Kamara, you're probably seeing more use out of Shahid. So Shahid might be a guy that I might lean into as a grab and hold, or in Dynasty, I might make a trade right now, picking up Shahid because you can get him cheap and
Cheaper than maybe,
cheaper than a lot
yeah.
of guys. And you hold him. You don't necessarily have to force him into your starting lineup right away. But we're week 9, Professor. Playoffs start week 15. There will be a lot more injury related issues in the next 6 weeks. So
Mhm.
the teams on this left hand side are ones where I'm looking for, like Atlanta. Like I said, Pitts and Bijan, they own a lot of those targets in addition to London.
Versus Mooney.
So Mooney, I don't
Obviously,
look at
you got to
him.
use common sense,
Yeah,
right? We see a path for Shahid.
but with the
I'm hard
Chargers,
pressed to
yeah,
see it for Mooney.
no, with the Chargers, I'm not getting rid of Quentin Johnson just because he had one bad game.
Nope.
What if something happens to McConkey or
Or
Allen,
something.
or Gadsden goes down? Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're leaning back into that second wide receiver, because
Yeah.
before they discovered Gadsden, Quentin Johnson was a thing. So
Yeah.
this is a great chart because it again, it doesn't give you the answer, but
Mm-mm.
it leads you in the right direction. And if I'm on that right hand side of the teams and I'm sitting there, I'm not investing in anybody on that red group. Like if I've got Diggs or Boutte, great. But you know what? Only one of them is going to pay off any given week, most likely. So that's where I'm kind of looking at this chart and saying, boy, unless this changes, unless this data changes, those teams on the right, I want one player from them as well. And that's a key. And here's an interesting one. Look at Detroit. smack dab in the middle.
Yep.
That's why Jamison Williams isn't a thing. They're just
Nope.
not targeting him enough. Could that change? Possible. But if you've got Gibbs and St. Brown
And
and
by the way,
Laporta,
I do have the team level, Dennis,
oh,
for
I
us
love
to
it.
look
I
at.
love it. I love it.
So if you look, Williams had two,
Yeah.
but look, he had 8 and 7, 1 and 2.
Yep.
You talk about
Yep.
spiky.
I don't like that inconsistency at all.
Well, he's you know, but I don't know if this is home and this is away. I don't know if there's other patterns, but this invites you to get deeper. That's the thing, Dennis. This data
Yes.
should drive
Yes.
questions. And
And
that's the
that's, yeah.
first question I see is how do you do the, and maybe I should, down the road, maybe next year is just look at each team and put a home or, an H or an A in front of this.
So
And
I got some bad news for you.
what?
Week 5 was road. Week 7 was home.
Mm-hmm,
Week 3
mm-hmm,
was road.
mm-hmm,
Week 4 was home, his
mm-hmm.
big week. But week 6 was on the road. There is no home away bias for
Yeah.
Jamison Williams. So
It's
it
a
might
some
be a
it's a
Mac.
game script. And you know
Yeah.
what? It's good to know that then, Dennis.
Yeah.
There's probably some secret somewhere. I don't know. See, I think the next level,
Wow.
did
Look at,
they get down too far? Or were they ahead early
yeah.
and didn't need Williams? See, then you invite yourself to that next level down.
And look at week 1 where they really passed a lot. And
Yep.
Gibbs got 10 targets.
Yes, they
Jeez.
did.
And Laporta at 9, his best of the year. So more passing also doesn't help Jamison Williams.
No.
So there's no way to easily
But I'm
discern
saying
what
if
is
we
causing
looked
that.
at first quarter scoring
Yes.
or
Yes.
or first half scoring, is there some, you see, that's the thing. It just
But
invites deeper study. And people just look at this, Dennis, and I'm saying you just this, oh, okay, there's no pattern next. No, 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 no.
no, there's a
This
pattern.
allows us to
Yeah.
get deeper. And
Well,
if you crack Williams, you might crack other players and other teams. In other words, it may be more of a universal situation. I don't know
and
in Minnesota, like
well,
Addison.
one thing I will tell you though is when I see a profile like that with Jamison Williams,
Mhm.
I run away because I want guys. We always talk about my MVP being about consistency. There almost needs to
That's
be
not that's
there
not
needs
consistent. Yeah.
there needs to be a target consistency as well. When I see for wide receivers, like for a WR2, I
Uh-huh.
want 5 or more.
Uh-huh.
Okay. For WR1, I want 8 or more. How often do you give me 8 targets? 8 targets is a big day.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And look at Jefferson. He's got 4 that exceed that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got 2 that were 1 away from hitting
And
that.
notice that's happened recently. So
Oh,
he's
yeah.
coming on.
He's coming on. And then you look at Addison,
But I
you
see in
know,
Addison,
that's great.
floor is 12. I mean,
Yeah.
ceiling 12, four is the thing. But with somebody like, the Williams here,
Oh, boy. Yeah.
yeah, 2 and 1. So you risk getting basically nothing.
He's
Whereas
got,
with Addison, it looks
yeah.
like you might get you 6, 8 points
And
with it.
again, I'm looking at I'm looking at 5. All I want is 5 or more out of my WR2, and he's viable to me.
Mhm.
Because the reason I say that and I set the bar higher for the WR1 I'm
Mhm.
not looking for the WR2 on a team to be a WR1 on my fantasy team. I'm looking for him to be a flex start.
Right.
But if I can't even get five reliable,
Yeah.
look at Higgins or Smith, Devonta Smith, and I think you'll see a different pattern there, which is why I trust those guys more as a
Right.
as a WR2. When you're a WR2 on a team and you're spiky like that with volume,
Mhm.
you're going to be super spiky on performance, and that's not something I want on a redraft team. On best ball, I might take to Slaw on
Yeah.
my team as well as Jamison Williams. I might want the entire Detroit offense if I can get it in best ball, but I don't want to have to make those decisions in
It's a
redraft.
tough decision. Okay,
Yeah,
so the next thing here and was
love this data. Love this
yeah,
data.
I know you do. Early versus late. I just divided first four, next four. So
Ooh,
then I asked the question, uh, uh, teams early, late, and I separated it here by the difference. So
wow.
Cincinnati's the most improved,
Competent quarterback.
3.7, 6.11.
Welcome to Flacco world.
Yeah, Carolina and New Orleans have declined. Dallas has declined. Baltimore declined. Of course, it may be changing now. Chicago, Cleveland, Vegas have all gone down. Minnesota and Tennessee and Philly and Atlanta. This is just targets, folks. It's not points, not wins. But this allows you to look at teams in a more recent. So again, the landscape I'm choosing is understanding those two big areas. So the previous landscape was the whole 8 weeks. Then I divide into two pots and look early and late. So when I mention landscape, it's different levels that you have to play. I mean, if you're an analyst, if you're a data person, that's how you roll is you've got to look. I guarantee you in weather, they look local, they look further out,
Yeah.
and they
Yep.
looked national and
Yep.
world, right? You're looking at
Yeah.
these different El Nino. Okay, what's going on the West Coast? What's going in the Rockies? What's going on in the Midwest? I mean, that is when I talk landscape, Dennis, that's the levels you're going up and down and inviting understanding of what's going local. I mean, I
Yep.
understand that's where we're leading to, right? I understand these lead to the player. Okay. I'm not disputing that, but what this allows us not to get your opinions so you're stuck on them. And so Williams this week, let's say he gets 12 targets and touch, and everybody's all on him again. That's if he's trade for, he's a trade for target. He's an in-game winner. He's a sleeper. League win. You hear all these they're just talking last week, Dennis. When you look landscape, it should scare you. No, I don't want. In fact, it might even be a time to sell in Dynasty if you can get another player, that maybe could be coming on, that kind of
and
thing. And
and
so,
I'll tell you one that jumps off the screen at me. Cam Ward in Tennessee. Look at Tennessee to be making this chart as the fourth
yes,
most fourth biggest
there it
increase.
is, right there.
That tells me that they're starting to trust Cam Ward more. And at the same time, you've got rookie wide receivers that
They're starting to come on a little
are
bit.
really starting to understand this game. I I like the chances of these guys performing down the road. And
So they're
I've got a
trade
lot
for
of
targets.
their trade for targets in Dynasty because I'll guarantee you Cam Ward you can probably get for a song right now. And people are giving up on him. I leaned into Cam Ward a little too much, but I'm starting a few shares of him this week. I'm kind of happy looking at this data.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little better about starting Cam Ward as an emergency super flex start in a couple of leagues with some
And if
injuries.
you use the visual, this shows you how Cincinnati is so wild,
Yes.
that kind of thing. So f- folks, when I do this, I like to look at visual, because visual, sometimes when you look at these, it's like,
Nah,
yeah,
subtle
but
difference.
boy,
Yeah.
when you do it this way,
Yep.
it's like getting slapped by a big fish across your face. Here it is. So I deliberately set these data up for y'all to see, what I'm looking at and thinking. And you're saying, what I do if I wanted to do this is the work you have to put in. And
Yep.
when Dennis is going deep, like his article at the half, he spent time in the weeds, and you get so much information playing that versus, well, what am I doing tonight? Well, I'm gonna get drunk. Okay. What am I doing now? I'm probably looking at data or looking at these charts again or just thinking. I can be watching TV, but during the commercial, I'm looking and just, kind of, but then I'm not a young man, Dennis. I'm not out, uh, trying to get in trouble. But, those days are done. Okay. So yeah, 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 I know. The statute limitations has run out on some of my antics. Yeah,
But
God,
here's
yeah,
one quick response that I have to this chart.
yeah,
Cincinnati is in a world of hurt if Flacco misses this
I
week.
know. And
I'm
I'm
so
reading the
scared.
tea leaves, trying to
Oh,
figure that out.
and it doesn't sound good right now. The
Yeah,
tea is a little bitter.
yeah, I'm looking elsewhere, Dennis, if I can trade somebody out to have as a backup,
Yeah,
because a lot of those teams I have Hurts and he's off.
right.
And
And what I'm saying here though is that
yeah,
if Flacco misses,
yep, Browning. Oh yeah,
if I have another solution to starting Higgins, I am jumping on it.
yeah, that
I,
would
you,
be
you're not
trouble.
taking you're not taking Chase out of your lineup,
No,
okay? But I'm also looking at Chase Brown at running back, and I'm saying
yeah,
there's got to be a better option because I think Chase Brown, if I were to forecast him with Flacco this week against the Bears,
yeah.
and factor in the percentage of a chance of a touchdown and that, I think Chase Brown is a 14-point guy,
Here,
plus or
so as
minus.
far as targets, he has been stuck around 3.
Yeah, he's not going to be he's a touchdown dependent running back right now.
Right, right.
He's not getting enough volume in the
Look
air.
at Chase,
Oh my God.
23-19.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at since Flacco joined in week 5. My
Yeah.
goodness, he's been over 10 every
But boy,
look at T Higgins with
Flacco, except
Flacco.
for last
So
week. Did he get
last week was
hurt?
a last week was a freak of nature, I think. I don't think last week was again, when I look at the data, I see 3 good, really good weeks. Like he's over 7. That's almost WR1 level to me. And then he had one bad week. I'll forgive a player for a bad week. But I will look. I'll look at what happened. What happened that game? But now we see Flacco is questionable. Maybe Flacco got hurt during the game and was playing hurt. And maybe that affected things. Or maybe,
If you
yeah.
look at when Browning look when they had Fant and Gersecki, they had
Yeah.
8 targets, and then
Yes.
Fant got hurt, and then Fant's back, and then Gersecki's hurt. But notice who stepped in. Hudson. If Browning
Yeah.
plays, this tells me if I'm betting, maybe you bet a
Tight end.
Hudson
Tight end
catch.
does something. Yeah.
Yeah, like a one of these props worth 10
Yeah.
yards and you get paid or something. Or, he might be a surprise. I'm not saying
Yeah.
a touchdown, folks. I'm just when Brown, when they've got two viable tight ends, they've been using them a lot. Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's very intriguing. And look, week 3, 5, 3, and 3, and notice. Look at Chase, almost his worst week,
Yep.
and the week before 3,
Boy, there were
5, 3, 5.
12 targets to tight ends in
That's
week 3.
crazy.
That's crazy. And then 5 more to the running backs.
Yeah, that's
That's
crazy, Dennis.
17
That is so
targets.
wacky.
Yeah.
Having Chase out there and just and laying it to the bunch of tight ends.
And actually, if you want to be honest about this, Mitchell Tinsley is kind of played more like a tight end. So that's interesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting
Anyway,
data.
this is stuff here. I know I could go on. I've got this listed. And if you want to look at player level, Dennis, I've got the player level.
Oh man.
And so we can look at targets and uh, the green, Dennis, is above 20% uh, of the population. And so I counted those that were
Oh, that's
above
perfect.
4 and above.
Yeah.
So these are the top play. But Kamara hadn't been. He's number him, Brahal and Irwin, and look at Bucky just waiting to
Oh, I
cook again.
miss
Look at
Bucky.
this.
Yeah.
Look at that. You can pencil him in for 4 targets if he can ever make it back. So anyway, this data's here. I won't go into too much. I did look at the last 3 weeks as well. If you want to look at different changes, and you can look at that data. So I've got all 8 weeks, and then I've got the last 3 weeks. You can look at that data with all the positions and
Look at
see what's going on.
McBride.
Yeah.
McBride is just in a world of his own, and
Yeah.
it's no.
Look, well, Dennis, look.
Yeah.
I mean, but who hadn't been doing too bad is Juwan Johnson.
Juwan Johnson. Yes.
Look at that. Not bad.
Wow.
I was surprised. He's tied with Kelsey as number 3.
Look at Kyle Pitts coming on in the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
10-9.
Yep.
This is fascinating data because when you take this data and you then ask the question, what happened
Yes.
at the team level to
Yes.
force these changes, it's rather interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But to see some of these guys, like if your count is 4 or more
Oh, you're the elite.
weeks, that's good. Those are guys that I'm like, all right, my starting tight end is hurt this week. Where do I go?
I have underestimated Ingram this year.
Yeah, Ingram's an interesting character because he's had some of his bigger target weeks where he hasn't done much, and he's had some of his smaller target weeks where he's done okay. He's been a weird player to forecast this year.
Yeah, I've been proud of Schultz. I thought
Schultz has done well. Schultz has been
but Juwan Johnson,
yeah.
I've got to look and see if he's still out there in a few leagues. I don't think
here's the key, folks. Dalton Schultz and Juwan Johnson were free squares.
Yes, they were.
So you're getting, and Jake Ferguson was cheap this year. I didn't even have a particularly high forecast on Ferguson, but I knew he was going to be playing every week. Like you just knew he was a solid guy. One bad week But he's had actually 2 bad weeks.
That's right. In
So
the
that's
last four,
interesting.
we just be
Yeah.
cautious.
Be cautious because I don't like the trend. The
I don't
trend's
like that
going in the wrong
trend
way.
either. Yeah,
And
I
that's,
like this. Yeah.
yeah, and that was, some of that was when Lamb was out. So
Yeah.
it made
Yeah.
sense he was eating when Lamb was out, but now with Lamb back,
So
he's
here's the top in the last three
wow.
weeks. Fanning and
Yeah,
Pitts.
yeah.
Look at Gadsden coming on.
Getz has
Kraft,
been playing
Otten,
more like a wide receiver.
Schultz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ertz.
Crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, this data is already up on the
Woo.
other things. So you can look at the team levels. All these are figures. This just allows you to refresh your thinking. That's what I'm going to call it. Refresh your thinking from the players and look for patterns and, pieces moving and the reasons why those pieces are moving around. So that's what I think you can focus on, Dennis.
Love
So
that data. That is such great data, Professor, because it doesn't necessarily answer a question. It just it
inspires questions.
inspires lots of questions. And
And again, these people just throw target numbers out, and usually what they do last week. You can't.
yeah,
It's got to be
no,
deeper than that, folks.
I do not like to base any decisions off of 1 week.
Yep.
That is the worst thing. Chasing points is from last week is the absolute first worst thing you could do. But chasing volume off of 1 week, because there could have been so many peculiarities. We do not sit and break down every single game in the NFL. We don't have that level of time. I mean, if we had interns, we could have them do it for us. But when you see this data and you see volume being consistent or volume changing, that should be a really big key to what you need to do going forward. Love this data, Professor. This is
It's
this
for
is
us.
next level stuff, because it really does break stuff down in ways that most people aren't doing. And
Well, the
it,
time, Dennis. The
yeah,
people
instant.
don't want to do it.
No, they
No,
just want to chase the points. Is so much easier to chase points than to do actual research.
I agree. I agree. I guess it's time
Good
to start the
stuff,
show.
Professor.
Yeah,
Let's start the show with a pre-show like that. It's going to be hard to top. I'm telling you, that was good data.
I knew you'd love it.
I like to chew on good data, and the pattern recognition guy in me is seeing this stuff and just thinking,
Yeah.
of how we can utilize this even more. And like most data studies, though, folks, what Professor and I are doing with this data this week is going to be a lot different, because we're going to learn from using this data. So by week 11, 12, the fantasy football playoffs, we're even better prepared than we are right now heading into week 9.
And just one editorial when these analysts say this is a grind and all this other stuff, how hard they're working. I'm like, you're working for the wrong. If it's a grind, you're working and doing it wrong. It should be enlightening, stimulating. Anytime I put, and this is hours of work y'all just saw, it is,
Yeah.
stimulates me and thinking. That's just who I am, folks. And I'm no offense to anybody out there, but there's a lot of analysts who are trying to fake like that's what they are. I'm not buying it. I think they're like, a square peg in a round hole, Dennis. That's why it's hurting them. That because they're doing, they need to find something in this game that is not that way. I don't know what it is. So my advice is not to just keep grinding to your soul. There's nothing left of you. but I would find something that inspires you to think about things and makes you happy so that you could care less who's saying anything about your stuff because I don't have time. I got too much questions to solve and ask and do. And that's way there. I rarely see uh, the thinking for thinking, trying to learn. That's what I don't see a lot of is how can we apply this next? I'm thinking next year, some of the stuff we're
Oh
doing.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
you just don't see that.
Well, I'm in the middle of a historic MVP data study where I'm
I
looking
I
at every player,
I know you are.
and I'm already learning ways that I can use this for next season and some of it for even late this season because and you'll never hear us say that we're busy grinding away. I can't wait to get home from work to
Yeah.
work on fantasy football data. It's something that you're just not it, whining about how much you're grinding on content or data. Like this should be some of the most fun part of your day should be dissecting data. If this is what you've decided to do with your life,
Yep.
to be a fantasy football air quotes analyst, you shouldn't be whining about grinding. You should be happy that you get to do this because this is something I'm glad I've got the time to invest on doing because you only have so many hours in the day. When you invested on something like this that's a worthy investment of those hours. So the grinding thing drives me crazy.
Grinds
All
my
right,
gears.
it grinds my gears. All right, here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? Well, you get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to apply the scientific method to fantasy football. And what does that exactly mean? No, we're not getting test tubes out. I'm not getting a Bunsen burner and putting the data over that. All I'm doing is I'm letting statistics guide me to an answer rather than having an idea and then looking at more and more statistics to back up your point. That's how a drunk uses a light pole, and you'll never catch us using statistics in that way. Joining me as he does each and every episode. After all, he is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor. We can learn so much from him and his data studies. It is John Bush. John, we're heading into the middle of week 9 now. And from my calculations, that means about 6 more weeks until the fantasy football playoffs start. That means there's lots of time to still make the playoffs.
I went outside and I did see my shadow, so I don't know if that means I get in the playoffs or not. I forgot, but I was outside, so I did see my shadow today, Dennis. So just remember what that means because I don't know. The
Ah,
caterpillars are extra woolly this year.
ooh. Yeah,
So,
I think that means more targets for CMC.
oh yeah, more, yeah,
I
can you
think so.
imagine more targets? Yeah, what is going on with San Francisco and Purdy? Are they trying to
Uh,
hide him? What's I guess if he doesn't play, he doesn't reveal if he sucks or not. I guess you could keep that question bubbling out there. I don't know what, I mean, he's not the only one, but that's one that's very intriguing this week. My biggest concern for my teams is Flacco. You and I talked
oh, yeah.
pre-show about that. I think he's done a lot for slinging targets, and my Chase and Higgins shares needs. Maybe my Fant shares needs that,
Oh, yeah.
and our
And
Chase Brown shares. We
ooh,
need all that goodness. We need
lots of
lots
cheese bread.
lots of activity.
Oh,
And I'm
yes, we
I'm
do.
concerned if we go back to Brown that we'll have a tight end fest and there'll be three or four tight ends catching two or three catches and nobody gets nothing. That helps
Oh,
no one. So I'm worried. I think my pick on if Flacco doesn't play, Dennis, I don't know if I can support Cincinnati under Brown. I may be flipping my pick there this week.
well, if we don't see Flacco, and I have not liked the news that I'm getting out of Cincinnati, it seems like he is trending in the wrong direction. I would not be shocked. Put it this way, I would put it at about a 20% chance that instead of Jake Browning, we could see Sean Clifford play
Ooh,
this weekend.
not.
And I'm putting it at a 60% chance that we could see Sean Clifford at some point during this game if Browning starts. So
Ooh,
that
that's
is
that's not good.
well, I'm rooting for Sean Clifford over Jake Browning because I already know how bad Jake Browning has been in this offense for my Bengals supporting
Bengals.
cast. So, and I have a lot of Chase Brown. I need Flacco healthy. And as far as Purdy goes, I'm hearing rumors that they might be shutting him down and he might be going in for some surgery. That's how bad that situation might be. Whatever they're doing as far as training, here's the thing, coming off of Halloween last night, I think I think the 49ers sold their soul to have CMC healthy because nobody else has been able to stay healthy on that team. They've lost Kittle, Pearsall, Jennings, Ayuk is still not back. They've lost Purdy. I mean, they've lost everybody except for CMC. He's the only one that hasn't gotten hurt yet. But uh, oh, do you smell that, Professor?
No, what is it?
Yeah, that's oh boy, November is here, and it's that new running back smell. It's like
Uh-oh.
when you buy a new car and you got that new car smell.
Yeah.
There's a new running back smell in the air. It's that time of the year that we're seeing more and more guys finally getting an opportunity. So here's the question. First of all, that's why better than zero works, folks, is because we draft a boatload of running backs and we add a lot of running backs during the year. We're always churning that roster, but we're always looking for that next man up. That's the big key. And that's why better than zero works. But here's the question I have for you from a philosophical
Uh-oh.
standpoint.
Hmm.
How do you forecast volume for a new running back situation like Kyle Monanjay for Chicago?
Mhm.
Like everything is screaming opportunity. You got Swift and Roshan Johnson out this week. You got the Bengals, who their defense hasn't been able to stop anybody. You got Monanjay, who is pretty good out of the backfield and really good as a running back for a rookie.
Mhm.
How do you guess? 16 touches, 20 touches week
Uh,
one for him? I don't even know where to start
well, I
trying to
I
guess.
would we need interns, and in those situations, say the last 10 years, what is an average expectation of when somebody like a Swift goes out and the next guy up? How many times is it split? How many times, that would be a beginning. And I don't have that fingertip data. So that's why we're guessing, but it's doable, Dennis. We just need a fleet of interns to had that answer already for you.
Yeah, and that's the problem here is in the biggest problem with any research like this is there are so many variables. So when I attempt to first make a forecast, the first thing I do is how many touches has Swift got? 22, 15, 17, uh, 18, 16, 20, 13.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with a healthy Monanjay as a backup,
Right.
who we know Ben Johnson loves to use two running backs. That's a lot. That's a lot of volume considering he had two healthy running backs. Now he's got Monanjay and Travis Homer. And Luther Burden is also out. So there goes the opportunity of, oh, maybe they'll run a few jet sweeps with Luther Burden. Now maybe they'll run a few jet sweeps with DJ Moore. So maybe your DJ Moore shares suddenly got a little bit more valuable. But that one I don't know how to read. New England Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson out. We know Antonio Gibson's done for the year. Now the rookie, Travion Henderson, finally getting an opportunity, but there's another running back on the roster that could steal some of the. It is so tough. Being a data guy, I probably even feel like I know more than the average Joe trying to play fantasy football. I don't have a clue. All I know is I'm leaning into playing Monanjay in every single league because there is no competition for volume and the Bengals are really not good. That's a combination that I'll take my chances on 10 out of 10 times.
I don't have a clear answer either. That's what makes it a fun game because you're guessing at that. I'm hoping I got better choices.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm not playing Monanjay over any of my RB1 types. Not doing it. Most of the places I'm subbing Monanjay in are places that I've been starting Swift every week. And I've been okay with starting Swift every week because he hasn't had to be RB1 production for me. He's been a flex or an RB2. And he's lived up. He's exceeded my expectations, especially since their bye week. So he's not getting a start over even guys like Javonte Williams on my teams. He might get a start over Kamara this year or this week because Kamara's not healthy and Kamara's been trending in the wrong direction as well. But when it comes to these running backs, my first week out with a new running back, be very careful. We've seen it with Washington where it looked like JCM after coming off a really good game. We thought, oh, he's going to be bulletproof for volume the rest of the year. And you got a three-way split. Look at Arizona. Arizona, when Connor and Benson went out, the question was, is it Carter or is it Knight? And the answer was neither that you wanted because they're splitting volume. And they'll probably do it again this week. Now, next week, when Benson comes back, I will be gung-ho to see that. But that leads to my philosophical question of the day, and probably one that'll lead to some off-season research. Have we really seen more games lost to injury this year by like top 25 running backs and wide receivers and top 12 quarterbacks? And when I say top 12, top 25, I'm talking about where they were drafted.
Right.
Not where they are in points. Have we seen more lost games this year, or it just seem that way because we're living through it and the nightmare of switching our lineups every week?
If we're talking injury, it should be randomish. So in my diary, I would make note of injuries and just allows you to look back. Just how did you do under those conditions? What did you do? How did you compensate? In other words, you can't predict, but I would say after the injuries, how good were you at going, getting around that roadblock? Or maybe you weren't. Maybe that, tells you something. But my feeling is sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not, but I couldn't give you a proportion. I want to think, of course, in my head, that it's probably a third I'm successful, but two-thirds I'm not. My strategy on all teams, regardless, is I play to the whistle and I keep making moves and apply the same rigor, whether I'm first or I'm 12th in the league. I still try to do the process and hope for good outcomes, but you can't help it as long as your process is good and as long as it's improving with your research. That's what we're really trying. Each year, you're doing two things. You're trying to make money, but you're trying to learn how to improve your process and your situation, Dennis. So every year is an opportunity. So teams that on the bottom, how did you do in your diaries? You can't let that say, well, last year I only won 1 out of 5, that I was 12th place in first 6 weeks, whatever. You shouldn't, well, I guess I'll just give up. No, you won 1 out of 5, or you made the playoffs in 1 out of 5. And so, how can you make that 2 out of 5 to make the play, or three? How can you get away from it? But you got to know and modify your processes. So that's how I would use the diary uh, on these questions. About a lot of injuries or not. I don't know. Could you predict that? I don't think there's a way to predict. I think during COVID, there was a lot of things happening that were
Oh boy.
strange,
Yes.
because the protocol was making people sit out an extra week or so. And that was confounding a little bit. But I don't remember, now that I look back, I don't remember I lost significantly or won significantly more. It felt like just I dealt with it, and I think I won money that year. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I don't even remember the last time I didn't win a little money. So, that's all I can do, Dennis, is try to work on that process.
Yeah, and I agree with the one thing you can do to improve your lineup selections better than anything else is to treat every one of your teams the same, whether they're first or 12th in FPPC, where we only count total points. So there's no luck of the draw and matchups any given week. But I don't look at where that team was. I don't sit there and spend more time on my first place teams than my last place teams. If anything, I'm probably spending more time on my last place teams this time of the year because they are the ones that I've had to make the biggest changes on. But I had a team last week, week 8, entered the week 82 points out of 6th place. Dead last, 12th out of 12 teams.
Mhm.
I came 4/10 of a point away from scoring 200 points, which is a big week in FFPC. I'm now about 20 points to the good in 5th place with that team after 1 week. So you can pick up the pace. And last year, well, go back 2 years ago, I picked up a dynasty team as an orphan. I always pick up an orphan if I'm going to start up a new team from draft. I always will look at the orphans that are available and I'll pick up an orphan. So I picked up an orphan in a very unusual league that starts 2 quarterbacks and starts 2 tight ends and has 3 IDP spots. And I was like, hey, that's kind of an interesting format. I kind of like this. So I grabbed an orphan. I was dead last out of 10 teams. I was 10th place, and I was 0 for, I think, the first 6 weeks that year. I won the rest of my games. I finished. I won. I only lost one the rest of the way because I remember that first year of that orphan, I finished with a 500 record, and I earned that last playoff spot based on points. I had the most points of the bottom 5 teams in the league that didn't get in on win-loss. And so I made the playoffs just barely, like by 10 points. That was how close it was. I beat everybody in the playoffs by over 40 points every week. Just rolled them. Thanks in part to Jonathan Taylor just having a monster end of the season. So the moral of the story was, first of all, never give up on a team that is struggling, because that team won me a lot of money. Well, last year, I finished 6th again in the regular season, last playoff spot. I had a winning record, not much of one, 8-6. Rolled in the playoffs again, thanks in part to Joe Burrow and Jonathan Taylor having big ends of years. So 2 years in a row, I've won a league where I wasn't the top team. Now, the crazy thing is that team I've continued to rebuild and do shape. And this year I am number 1. So, and that's without Burrow. Like, that's with quarterbacks that have been dropping like flies because Kyler Murray, losing him. But I drafted wisely. I, grabbed guys that nobody really wanted, and I've patched and filled, and I've survived. Now, if I get Burrow back for the playoffs, that's going to be a bonus, and I'll probably have the three-peat. But the moral of the story, never give up on your teams. Never. First of all, you're going to learn. Even if you don't make the playoffs, you're going to learn a lot from those downtrodden teams. How quickly can I rebuild? How much can I do? With your redraft, obviously there's no rebuilding for next year, but can I improve as the year goes on? That's always my goal. I always want to finish strong in every league I play in. And you learn things along the way of strategies that you might take. Because if you've got a bottom dweller in redraft, Professor, is there anybody you're not willing to get rid of to try to improve your team? You're taking some big swings sometimes, and that will teach you some lessons as well on, maybe I take a chance on young wide receivers more so. If I was wrong in my drafting, maybe now's the time, week 8 heading into week 9, that I make some bold moves. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to finish last. So what? If you're not trying, though, you will never get better. So if I was 8th or 10th or whatever and not in the playoffs now, and I make some bold moves and I finished 12th, at least I took a shot at it. I didn't go down, just playing the same old thing and playing for 8th place. That's not something I like to do in fantasy football. I like to make the playoffs, because if you make the playoffs, you got a chance to win money.
Agreed.
Professor showed us some amazing data in the pre-show that if you're just tuning in for the regular Science of Fantasy Football and you missed the pre-show, you got to check out this data, folks. This is some primo stuff when it comes to targets and how targets change and are distributed over time. The professor once again gave us a lot to think about. But Professor, It's time to
Yeah.
jump into that
I do want to
Vegas
just
data.
comment, folks. I gave you the figures. They're up on Science Fantasy Football. Listen to how we discussed it and Dennis's pattern analysis, but there's a lot there we didn't cover. So there's not a quick, I'm going to digest everything in 5 seconds. That is not what it meant to do. It's a starting point for you to learn how to think about that. So there's depth there. That's what I'll say.
And
Okay.
I will also add that I think there are other people out there who are going to pick up on a lot of patterns that you and I might miss. And
Yes.
so I'm encouraging folks to look at that data. And if you've got a question or if you've got a comment, you've got an opinion, let it be known, man. We want more interactive thought with folks because that's how we get better as well.
Okay. I agree.
So, Professor, on
Yep.
our matchup lab, we're going to look at the worst and the best games. We call them Squirrels and Huskies. So, those games are going to be out. Why don't you go over the Vegas data a little bit for folks and we'll
It's
set
a
up for our.
really interesting week. We have 6 games of predicted 49 points or more.
Ooh,
That would imply that there's lots of goodness. I will make note, Cincinnati is sitting there, and I think if Flacco's there, this seems closer to reality. If he's not there, I'm not sure I would think about the under. Just be cautious on that game. Uh, but I think this is set with Flacco playing. You know, some of these are set with that happening here. We already saw Baltimore and Miami. I don't know how many points they score.
that one did not live up to the billing, and we were a little bit cautious on that one. Uh,
I'm always
34
cautious, huh?
34 was the
Total.
Baltimore got 28, Miami 6. So they
How
Miami did
much
not
Miami got? Six.
six
Well, there's
lousy
the. I mean,
points.
Miami just they didn't do their job there.
Nope, nope.
28's pretty close for Baltimore, and
And the fact that Miami was at 6, Baltimore didn't need any
yeah,
more than
yeah,
28. So
yeah.
that's always our big concern with those games with a
Especially
healthy
the
spread.
spread. Dennis,
Yep.
take a look. The only spread in these top, and I haven't looked at that. That might be something to consider. Put it in your diary, just if you're a betting person. Just, what's different about these high predicted games? The spread. So, and it made the under. So the rest of them are predicted to be much closer. Will that drive these an over? In other words, if you bet all these an over except this an under because of the spread, would that give you, would you make money over time? Look at this year, last year. I mean, that's part of it is there's lots of data sources out there that you can see and just, if you want to do that, that'd be a great study to do, Dennis, is just look at spread versus over under. That would, I haven't done, I bet you Vegas has done it. But anyway, that's what hit me about that is the spread was really wonky that way. You know, what's the tendency to hit an over with a high spread? I don't know that. That's what I would ask. Anyway, Dennis, do you want to do some of the lower scoring of the high
Let's
scoring, or do you want
so
to go into the
yeah,
mid?
so
What do you?
let's go let's live in the mid for one and go to a peculiar high one that we're concerned about. So let's look at Detroit, Minnesota, because that's a tough game for forecasting for some of the secondary players that you might be making decisions about this week.
And I will say that power ranks, Detroit is here, Minnesota is there, below
Oh boy.
average, above average. So just be aware of that. Looking at efficiency home away, if you look that, Detroit is all about the home. Minnesota is 9% less than average, which is one. So there's a differential there. Detroit kind of wins that. And Detroit rushes a little more, passes a little less. Minnesota's going to want to pass a lot more. So Aaron Jones is back, right? Be
Yep.
aware, right? 22% less rushing. Doesn't mean he won't get a touchdown from rushing, but it may be more him passing, catching out of the backfield here. Just looking at this distribution, you can look at that. Let's see what else. This is just looking at predicted rush week 8. You can see what the efficiency data on rushing and passing is predicting this week. Detroit is here for rushing. Minnesota is way down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so passing, Minnesota is here. Detroit is actually below that, Dennis.
Wow.
So this skews to Minnesota having to pass more to deal with Detroit rushing more on the balance. So think about that. So we can use it this way, this data that way. So I've got that. So you can look at all the games this week and just write down your diary. Does that help you think about things? Does it help you in deciding tiebreakers? Right now, I would say, given that I haven't done a lot of research here, I would probably just make this tiebreaker situations for deeper players, right?
Yes.
Jameson Williams with Detroit predicted to pass less would be somebody that a little. We talked about target. Be cautious. In other words, if he's the only person standing in your flex, okay. But if you've got some different opportunities, then some of these up in here might be a better play, like Kansas City. If I've got Worthy or Hollywood Brown, even that might be somebody to force in over Williams. That kind of decision making. Just put that down. Okay. What you think about that, Dennis?
I agree wholeheartedly with that. I when I have a game where I see because of the spread that a team might or the efficiency or whatever that a team might not be passing as much, I choose usually to look away from all but their number one receiver, whether that is their tight end. In this case, it's not. In this case, the Sun God is an automatic play every single week, obviously, but Jameson Williams and Laporta become optional starts in this kind of a scenario for me.
Yep. Here's Detroit, Minnesota, 32-14. Sounds
Oof.
bad for Minnesota. They're not playing Wentz, right? He's on IR getting surgery.
It's supposed to be JJ back,
Oh boy.
and we
That's
don't know what we're going to see with him.
yeah. Well, let's see. Did we? I don't know. 9 is the spread, so Vegas thinks it's pretty much Detroit's game to lose, and 47 and a half. Detroit, nothing stops me from playing anybody other than their natural variation, i.e., Williams. We saw with targets. Detroit is an interesting defense to stream this week. Yeah,
Yes.
can I say that? Yeah. Minnesota, it's all about the passing. And that's exactly what the DAPs are trying to tell us. plus 12% more since Minnesota's away. Detroit is more balanced at home. They are declining in the last few weeks. I don't know how many road games they've had, but for them, notice it doesn't mean like don't bet. It just means for them, early versus, the last few weeks versus the complete season. They've done less in efficiency here. Definitely a home away bias. When it's stained green, then it's 28% better at home. They're at home. Hence the spread here in Minnesota. I think they're going to have to pass. And Aaron Jones, be cautious. He would be more flex for me this week if I had to use him. And that's pretty simple, I think, on maybe more complex than I'm seeing, but that's how it looks to me.
No, I don't think it's complex at all because you have a bunch of reasons to be worried about Minnesota this week. You've got an unproven quarterback who's been dealing with injuries coming back in because they don't have another option. You've got a running back split with Mason and Jones that already makes the volume uncertain. Those are not the ideal situations. And then you've got a DAP that is tough against the run for Minnesota. And you got both teams declining, but you got a big spread and you got Detroit at home where you know they love to eat. To me, that says you play Detroit. You're obviously playing Gibbs and Sun God every single week. There's never even a decision. But I might not lean into playing Goff this week. I might not lean into playing even Laporta this week if I've got a better option, because I'm not so sure that Detroit's going to have to throw that much to beat this Minnesota team right now that really is coming into this game with a lot of potential negatives. So yes, you're playing Jefferson if you drafted him. You're probably playing Addison if you drafted him, and I'm okay with that, even with the DAPs. But boy, I'd be very cautious about starting either running back for Minnesota. Well, let's lean into a little bit juicier of a game that almost made the top two. Let's look at that Chicago-Cincinnati game because there's a lot of question marks on the Cincinnati side.
Let's see, where are we at? Cincinnati. Here we go. Cincinnati, I think with Flacco, 40% better efficiency predicted. If not, this could be really bad really quick. Chicago, 10% less. Chicago's going to pass more. Cincinnati should be able to pass a lot more with some rushing act, so some Chase Brown activity. So Cincinnati with Flacco looks balanced, Dennis, and still skewed to Chase Higgins with Chase Brown. I'd be a little concerned about Fant. If Browning or whoever is playing instead of Flacco, I may pull out my Fant shares, if I need, break glass if I need.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Passing, all about passing. Swift is out. Dennis, I'm a little worried about Monanjay. Play him if you need him, but be cautious. 28%, 23% less rushing attempts in this situation for Chicago. So a lot of it is just injury related here, Dennis, and you can look to see where these things stack up. So Chicago for rushing is way down there, and Cincinnati is way up here. So there's a skew that way. And Chicago, here's the passing, and Cincinnati number one. So Cincinnati owns both sides of that with the Flacco. So let's see, what game was that? Was that 9? 9. Okay. So let's take a look. 6, 7, 8, 9. Is this 9? Yeah. Chicago, Cincinnati, 28-24. Not sure I'm buying that, but there it is. 2 points, 52. That's a lot of points there, Dennis. Chicago, play them all. Cincinnati, play everybody but the defense. Defense sucks,
Yeah.
and I would not play the defense. Chicago is streamable, but there's other options out there. Looks to me like play them all, play everybody. I'm just saying by the DAPS, just realize the efficiency here uh, was the skew with Chicago being away is skewed to the passing. Cincinnati being home is skewed to the passing as well. So both is skewed to the passing, but Chicago is not as much rushing. Cincinnati a little bit higher, than league average rushing. It seems straightforward that you're playing everybody. There's nobody I'm scared of unless Flacco's out. Then I'm extra scared of a lot of situations there. I'm really concerned about Chase Brown without Flacco. And I'll play Chase regardless, but Higgins is my concern. I may swap Higgins and Fant if Browning is in.
And I don't mind that move at all. Pre-show when we're looking at the data, Fant and the tight ends as a group were getting targeted a lot more with Browning than Flacco, and Flacco's understood the job, and that is feeding Chase and Higgins.
And but definitely Chase 2-1 over Higgins. But if Chase is busy, then you flip it to Higgins, and then it's a Chase Brown or a tight end. That seemed to be the pecking order.
Yeah, and Chase Brown is eating more because he's getting more opportunities to actually get in the end zone and to get positive yards if they've got to worry about the passing game. If they don't have to worry about the passing game, then the defense can adjust. So here's one where I'm taking Chicago to win regardless of who plays at quarterback for Cincinnati. But if Browning is in, this is the underplay of the week. If Browning is not, if Flacco plays, I'm thinking this game might even be farther over that 52. I think the 52 was probably a conservative number with the fact that Flacco was questionable. And now that.
Yeah. And Dennis, just before I forget, if I'm betting the over-unders, I'd be right there at 10:30 or whenever.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to hit the send button. Because if Vegas gets wind and if Rappaport comes out, I'd be sending as soon as possible before even 10:30. You're going to have to ride that bet because Vegas is not going to sit around if Browning's playing and have that 52. I would think they'd either take the odds out. They would do something would change.
They'll drop it to 48.5 without Flacco, I think is the automatic move. They've already moved it to 51, which tells me they're think a little Flacco
skittish.
They think Flacco is trending in the wrong direction. Well, today, folks, in addition to this being week 9 of fantasy football, it is Breeders' Crown or Breeders' Cup time for the thoroughbreds. And the professor Dennis, and I like to handicap. Yeah, let's do this. Let's pick. We're gonna pick the classic. Definitely, always want to pick the classic. Let's have you pick one other race, and I'll pick one other race.
Okay.
And I want to pick the Breeders' Cup Mile, a turf race, 1 mile turf race. I love that race. That'll be the race I pick. And of course, we're picking the classic as well. So you pick your other favorite race other than those two.
Okay. Let's see. I'm looking. I bet, Dennis, I bet, pre-bet race 3 and up. So I've got a superfecta in all those
Woohoo!
here. So what are you interested in? And I'll give you my two, more of a favorite, more of a long shot there. Or do you want to do
Oh,
the classic first and be done? How do you want to work
let's
this?
well, yeah, let's be fair and let's do the distaff and the classic then. And
Okay.
then we'll do the Breeders' Cup Mile. So let's open with the Breeders' Cup Mile, which is a 1 mile
So what
race
race
on
is
the
that?
turf. And that is race number. That is race number. That's number 8.
Number
Oh, I'm sorry.
8.
No, no, no. Nope, 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 nope. Sorry. That is the other turf race. Where is the Oh, there it is. It is race number 10. Race
Race
10.
race 10, Breeders' Cup. So did they do the classic before that?
They're doing the classic. They're
I
rearranging the
didn't bet this race because I thought the classic was it.
No,
Silly.
they've got
What?
they've got this year,
What?
and the classic has always been the last race. Okay,
Yes,
always, always, always for as
they
long as
tricked
I've been
me.
watching this. Yes,
Dennis, they tricked me.
so they got the mile, they got the dirt mile, and they got the filly and mare turf,
Hmm.
which is 1 mile and 3/8. All of those races are after the classic.
Dennis, I didn't even bet race 10.
Well, let's throw that one out then, and let's look at
Damn. But
let's
I'm
look at
going to
the
bet it. I'm
let's look at race number 8, which is the Cup Turf.
Okay, race 8. So
And by the
my
way, in the mile, I like the Lion in Winter. That is my pick.
Okay, race 8. I like the 8 and the 10 as my key horses there in race 8. So the 9 and the 10.
Ooh,
So
you're going with some guys with some odds. That's
9,
great.
yeah, Gold Phoenix, and the 10 is El Gorbos, whatever. Charles Appleby is coming over
Yes.
from the pond. I like that. This is a turf race, folks. I like these English horses. And so I skewed my long shot betting, Dennis, to those foreign horses. 30% trainer finished third in his last
Oh,
race.
yes. Yes.
His lifetime with this is the El Cordobés.
Cordobez. Yep.
Yeah, Frankel was his sire. Frankel bowed last by Sea of the Stars. So this is turf up and down. It's a gelding from Ireland, and Appleby Godolphin. They don't play, Dennis.
No, no. And you got Billy Loughnane on, who's a really good jock. I actually like the chalk at one of the chalkier horses in here, but I'm also going Charles Appleby. I'm the number 1 horse, Rebels Romance, who was 5-2 in the morning line.
Yeah.
This is an oldie but a goodie, folks. We're talking a
Remember, his
7.
other horse is my 10.
Correct. And I think
So
those
be
are,
be cautious about
yep.
that exacta or both of them hitting the money.
I like the idea of a 110 here, or a 10-1.
Yeah.
And Rebels Romance has my favorite international jock, William Buick. I
Yeah.
have made so much money off of him, and that is another Godolphin horse. I don't know if Applebee's got anything but Godolphin horses right now,
Yeah.
but that is my pick to win in that one. Let's go to the distaff, which is
Let's see. My bet
race
was,
number
I'm sorry,
7.
that was the 8 and the 10. So
Yep.
before we go, I picked Adrian O'Brien, Dennis,
Oh,
8
very good.
and
Very
the
good.
10. So I picked two European horses. The favorite He's right now 8-5, and then the long shot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll
okay.
probably be taking a shot at your long shot there, the 10, because I don't play chalks, but I my pick is that the chalk might get that one. Race
So
7, the
yeah.
Breeders' Cup Distaff, a mile and an eighth on the dirt. It is a traditional
So this is race
race.
7. Okay, let me move to race 7. Here it is. And my bet in race 7 is 6 and 8. So I like the favorite,
Yep.
Baffert, and I
Yes.
like the 6. It is I think is that a Japanese trainer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And they've
And
done very well. And Kyle Fry is a really good jockey for them.
so be called, they've done well. They had some pretty good workouts. I like that. The trainer is, they don't have a lot of the stats with
No.
just America, you know, trainer, but the jockey has done pretty well. He's, the last 14 days he hadn't done too well, but we'll see. I mean, he's trying to win some money here. He ran in the Sapporo Stakes and in August, so I think they shut him down after that. But I guess his best play was way back, long time ago, last year, Dennis. He's got back class
Oh,
mile in the
yeah.
fourth way back in the day. So he did well at the Kyoto racetrack. So I'm hoping he'll bounce back, but then again, that's why you're getting 20-1 here. What do you expect? So I like the favorite and the 20-1 shot to come in my superfectas.
Yeah, I agree with the favorite Seismic Beauty. I think is going to win this one for Baffert, but trying to find the long shot to come in second. I do also like that 6 horse. I also like the 7 Jin Jin. I think that horse has a chance in here as well, and a little less odds, but I like the number 1 Nitrogen. I think this is a pretty open race after the favorite. So finding that long shot to come in second here is going to pay off nice, I think, in the perfectas. Let's go to the Cup Classic as our last race. That's race number 9.
Race 9. Yeah, I like the 1 and the 3. So let's see. Uh, 1 and the 3. So I got to figure out who those are.
So that's
Fierceness is the favorite.
fierceness. Yeah.
Yeah, 4-1. And the 3 is the Bob Baffert with Mike Smith, Nevada Beach. Dennis, there's your long
Oh, yeah.
shot. He won the Santa Anita last time, the Goodwood Grade 1. Baffert, Dennis, he's won 3 of his 4 starts, lightly
Yep.
raced,
Yep.
and you're getting some nice odds on him. And him and the jockey, they have 17 starts. They've come in 7, and they've returned $2.85 on the money. So they've paid your way to bet on every time they've come together here, Dennis. So I'm liking that as the shot there. And like I said, he won. Uh, he was pressed. He got some action going in Santa Anita, and he loves Santa Anita. He's never been on the Del Mar, but he has done really well. And but I like fierceness as well. Todd, if Todd is wearing his red tie, Dennis, did you see that?
Yes.
Yes, that was Wayne Lucas's tie that he had given. Todd used to work for Wayne Lucas. Rest in
Yep.
peace. Made money off him.
Oh,
Uh, So that will be the secret play with the red tie with the Nevada Beach, 1 and 3. Dennis, who you like?
I love the 3 horse in this one. Nevada Beach is the classic late to the races 3-year old for Baffert that just keeps getting better every time out. But the other reason I like Nevada Beach in here is because I think he's going to be just off the pace in this one. I think he's going to be able to close off of a pretty quick pace. Um, Chad Brown has Sierra Leone, who is a big closer in this. He added a rabbit in this race in
Mhm.
contrary thinking, who will be out first in the of the gate, probably be 40, 50 to 1. You're going to
Mhm.
get Thrill for the first half mile because he'll probably be leading the way, but he's just out there to establish a pace because they were worried about Sovereignty. And so they put a speed horse into this. Now Sovereignty's been scratched. So
Mhm.
now you got Fierceness from the Rail, who also has some decent speed but doesn't need the lead. And you've got this rabbit that's going to go out. Sierra Leone will be coming late, but Del Mar traditionally has not been a great closer track because it's got a smaller, a shorter stretch run. So I think Nevada Beach just off the pace. Nobody's won more Breeders' Cup races than Baffert or big races than Baffert.
And Mike
And
Smith has won his
Mike's
share.
Mike Smith is also one of the best at judging the pace. So if contrary, thinking goes out too fast, you're not going to see him chase that pace real close. But what he's going to want to do is get the jump on Sierra Leone and be the first and get a jump on Fierceness. I love Fierceness from the rail too, but I like the long shot here. This is the equivalent of starting Kyle Monange as your RB1, though, because this is a long odds play to be RB1, but I really think Nevada Beach is going to hit the board at a nice price. And
Well,
it, you can make a lot of money betting off a Baffert, and you rarely get good odds on a Baffert horse. This is one you're going to because he's been so lightly raced. What, 4 starts in his
yes, four
career as a
star.
3-year-old? That doesn't bother me. He's a West Coast horse too. And I love West Coast horses at either Santa Anita or Del Mar because it's a different feel to the track than an East Coast.
Traditionally, when Ron McNally was alive, there were times where he would surprise and just sweep two, three, four of these Breeder Cup races over
Oh
the
yeah.
years. So
Yep.
these local trainers, they've been itching, itching to have that Breeders' Cup back. So there's probably some other local trainers that will surprise us today. So if you just want to take a flyer on some, I would look for some local jocks and trainers to get together and might, put them in your mix, your, tries and your super fives and whatever. They may run better than you think.
Yeah,
That would
that
be
is
my advice over the years. Since the
yes.
1980s, I've seen that phenomenon.
Yeah, that is great advice. And I actually think the Japanese horses will do better on the West Coast than they do on the East Coast tracks.
Yes,
The East Coast tracks tend to be a little bit deeper. The
yes.
West Coast tracks tend to be a little harder. And I think the Japanese horses seem to like that surface a lot better. They do very well when they come to some of those West Coast stakes races,
Yes, they do.
especially in the fall and winter. They do very, very, very well. So there's our picks. We gave you some prices. I am going to be playing Nevada Beach. That's how confident I am
I've
on
already
that one.
played it.
I'm
I've already put my bets in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to be playing a couple of the professor's long shots because I have chalks in a couple of those other races. Hopefully, we'll pick a winner for you. So thanks for tuning in to a little bonus horse racing coverage here head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. You can check out all of the professor's data. Trust me, folks, spend some time looking at this new target data before you enter your week 9 picks for your final lineups. Head on over to the sportsaffiliation.com and their YouTube channel. Like and subscribe and check out the matchup lab coming
That
on
we're going to
later
do next. Yeah.
next. And head on back here next Wednesday for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks. Go bet.
Love your picks, Professor. I think everyone that you mentioned
Yeah.
was somebody I like.
Yeah.
Like
I sent you all my pre-bets, Dennis,
ooh,
in
good,
text, so you can have all my
good.
thinking.
Oh, love it.
So there you
Love it.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
because
see what happens.
my dance card is open this afternoon, so I'll be watching a lot of Breeders' Cup stuff.
Okay,
Love best day in racing.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, me too. I'm excited.
here.
Let me shut down our recording and we'll start
Yeah.
we'll get lean and mean on our matchup
Yeah,
lab
we're
here.
doing good. We're